Now, after living in Australia for 2.5 years, after moving from the UK, I have come to the conclusion that Australian people are just way happier than Brits in so many different ways. And there is definitely some big reasons for that. And we're going to go into them points in today's video as we discuss why I think Aussies are so much happier than Brits in general. So first of all, I thought I would start with the most obvious point and the biggest point really to why Aussies are so much happier than British people, and that is the weather and lifestyle. This is the most obvious point, but it makes so much sense because the weather and the lifestyle in Australia is amazing. I'm not going to go into why it's amazing. Obviously, we know the sun being out, going to the beach, cycling, hiking, swimming, all that kind of thing is just good for your mental health. And that's one thing I've definitely realized is, especially getting a little bit older, where you don't care so much about drinking and partying, you realize how happy things like getting sunlight, getting good exercise, and doing fun activities, you realize how good for you that sort of stuff is. Just something as simple as waking up and seeing the blue skies. Right now, if I look outside, there is not a cloud in the sky. It was the same yesterday, it was the same the day before. Even when you get so used to it, you don't realize how good that is for your mind just to wake up and it not be raining. And this goes without even talking about all of the activities that you can do because of the nice weather. It's an obvious one. Point number two is, I feel like in Australia they have a country to be proud of, whereas in the UK, I don't know how much of the UK can we really be proud about at the moment. I feel like when you've got a country to be proud about, you're just a happier person when you live in a country that you clearly love. This is something I really noticed a lot when I started to make videos on social media. Whenever I used to make videos giving my point of view about Australia, maybe criticizing things, Aussies don't like it, whereas in the UK, no one cares. Everyone's in a collective agreement that they don't like it. Everything is negative towards the country. Australia is an amazing country. The scenery, the weather, the people, the lifestyle. Living in a country where people clearly love it is going to make the people so much happier, whereas no one's proud about the UK, no one's bragging about how good our cities are, our weather. It's very rare you hear someone talking about all the positive things they think about the UK. It's not really the case. In Australia, it's the complete opposite, and I think when you've got a country you're happy living in, obviously you're going to be happier. Of course, there is some Brits who love living in the UK, but there is 100% a higher percentage of Aussies that love living in Australia more. Point number three is no dark winters. Now in the UK, I feel like everyone just gets seasonal depression because during that winter period, I don't think Aussies understand, those of you who haven't been to the UK in winter, how long and dark our winter is. Picture Australian winter, but twice as long, twice as dark, and 3 times as cold. If you're in the UK from roughly October right through till about April, you are not going to see temperatures above maybe 15 degrees. Particularly that December, January period, the sun doesn't rise until about 8 in the morning and then it sets by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So particularly if you're working like a 9 to 5 job, you don't really see the daylight. You get up in the dark, you go to work, and then you finish at 5 and the sun's gone down. So no wonder people get seasonal depression in the UK, because people will go 5 days a week without hardly seeing the sunlight at all. And it is pretty depressing. And I think a big reason why Aussies are so much happier is because their winter is nowhere near as long. There's a lot more sunny days in the winter. Like, I've got pictures, look at this in Australia. This is midwinter, some of these pictures. It's a lot different to UK winter. And whilst the summer days aren't as long in Australia, the winter days are definitely longer than the UK days, where they are painfully short. Point number four is a positive culture. This is a combination of everything, but I feel like in Australia there is just way more of a positive culture. I've mentioned this before, and that is that Aussies are typically very optimistic, whereas Brits are very pessimistic. Brits see the negative in everything. If you mention something or you tell them about something you've done or brag about something a little bit, typically Brits will see the negative in that. They'll try and look for a way to bring you down or make themselves feel better, or typically, yeah, that's the way I see it. Obviously it's not everyone, but it's a typical thing in British culture to drag everyone down and don't let anyone get too big for their boots. We see the negative in things a lot. Whereas in Australia, Aussies seem to see the positive in things a lot more. I've heard they don't like it too much when people brag and get too big for their boots, but I feel like Aussies do definitely see the positive in things a lot more. The whole culture in Australia just feels so much more positive. People want the best for each other. In the UK, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like everyone's in a constant competition to out-compete each other, and it just creates a negative environment. So I think Aussies in Australia, there's just way more of a positive culture, and hence why Aussies are happier. Point number 5 is the higher wages. Now, money, they say, doesn't exactly buy happiness, but it's got to improve it, right? In Australia, the typical wage is a lot higher than the UK, and after living in both countries, I can definitely say that the cost of living is better in Australia because of the higher wages and stuff like that. So I know I'll get Aussies in the comments that say it's still expensive. Of course it's expensive, but being on a higher wage than in the UK, it's definitely going to make you happier. And even though everyone would like to have more money, knowing that in the UK, if I was doing the same job, I would be getting paid way less, has to be a reason why people here are happier. And point number 6 is that Australia is so detached from the rest of the world. People will sometimes complain about Australia's isolation being a bad thing, but I think in some ways it does contribute to Aussies being happier, because there's a lot of problems in the world. Australia being detached and so far from a lot of them problems definitely has an impact here on the culture and the vibes. Living in the UK, and I'd imagine places like America, without even realizing it, you're just constantly hearing bad news and the country's involved in something bad. Places like the UK and America are the center of attention around the world for news, and a lot of that news is negative, and without even realizing it, that will have an impact on the people of the country. If you're constantly hearing bad news about the country and stuff, then it's gonna run down and people are gonna start thinking more negatively, sometimes without even realizing it. Whereas in Australia, they're less in kind of the global news. It might be the odd little story, but it's not constant news. You don't hear that many negative stories on the news about Australia, not to the same extent as you do in places like the UK. And I think, yeah, that's down to Australia just being tucked away in its own little corner of the world. And I think because of that, they do avoid a lot of the problems that we have in the UK, because we're right in the center of it all. This isn't the major factor to the happiness, but it definitely has an impact. So there are some reasons why, in general, I think that Aussies are so much happier than Brits. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, and I will see you very soon with another video.